So today we'll be talking on REST versus GraphQL API, the architecture decision in 2026. How many of you have heard about GraphQL before this event? GraphQL API, very few. And REST API? More than that. SOAP API? API? Cool. So still there are few who don't know like what is API and how API works. So we'll start with there. So basically API is application programming interface is used for web, mobile or any kind of platform to interact with database. So now comes into the picture for our system, for our architecture, for our project, which API to use. REST, GraphQL, SOAP or something else. Which API is suitable? The correct question is which API is more suitable actually. Okay, so we'll be covering more from the security perspective. So security, pen testing, architecture of REST and GraphQL API, and defense, of course. We talk about attack surfaces if we are in offensive, OffSec, okay. But with that, we also should have idea of how to defend, how to protect our system. Okay. So how many of you are interested in offensive security, like attacking? Okay. And how many interested in defensive security? Defense? Cool. Okay. So red teaming, blue teaming, both things are there. So here we'll be covering both offensive, like attack surfaces, what attack surfaces are there for REST API, for GraphQL. Majorly we'll be covering on GraphQL in today's session. And as well the defense mechanism, like how we can protect if there are so many attack surfaces are open for the GraphQL API. So first of all, we'll try to understand, as there are so many who don't know like how GraphQL architecture, the REST API architecture, how does they work, right? So first we will understand the foundation of both of this and the architecture design for both of this. And then which one, when, which one, right? Third, GraphQL pentest methodology, how to pentest if your system or the system, if you are, how many have tried for bug bounty or maybe curious or attracted towards bug bounty? Definitely, if you are in cybersecurity, there will be like somewhere in your mind, bounty to marni hai, right? Okay, cool. So GraphQL pentest methodology, how to go step by step. Then vulnerabilities we'll discuss on. Basically, this is from OffSec, offensive, like what all attack surfaces are there if your system or any system has GraphQL API. And then GraphQL defense and hardening, how we can protect if our system or any system is using GraphQL architecture. And then tools and references, takeaways. So let's start with foundation and architecture. First of all, we'll take REST API, representational stateless transfer. This was introduced approx 2 decades back, in 2000 approximately, okay? And the GraphQL one is in 2012. So GraphQL one is little new, of course, and REST API is quite traditional, used by many. The reason behind is like it is known by most of the developers. And first of all, so we'll be discussing 4 key points of REST API. It is stateless. What does it mean? For each individual functionality, there will be a different request. For example, if we want to fetch the data of the users, then there will be a different GET request. If we want to register a user or store some data, we have to again initiate one POST request. We want to modify, different request. We want to see the server is available, different head request. So for each and every individual functionality, if you want to fetch the data of 2 users, you have to make 2 requests. So basic, and this will be independent. Stateless means it does not maintain a state or the record. Okay. For each and in each and every individual functionality or task, you have to initiate a different request. You can see get API user 42. So basically, you are fetching the data of user with ID 42, correct? And as well, you need to have bearer token. Means you need to validate like whether for user with 42, ID 42 have logged in properly. It is if 42 have logged in, then whether he is asking for the 42 details only, like ID 42 details only, or some other details. For example, if you have logged in with ID 41, but you have modified the request with get user slash 42. You are 41, you have logged in with credentials of user ID 41, and you are just manipulating, you are changing request by slash 42. That time server should not respond. What it should say? Unauthorized user, right? So that way. Second is resource based, like one URL, one resource action only. I have explained earlier, right? One action will be taken by one request. If you are sending some data and you want to store after that, there will be two requests, two individual requests for that. If you have, how many have you run Bubsuit? Okay. Okay. Or if you inspect the browser, inspect might be everyone have done, right? So when you inspect element, like you load one page, and if you see in headers or in requests, you see multiple requests are getting heated, right? So for each and every small individual task, one URL will be get hit, okay? So URLs identify resources, and by looking at the URL specification, example, you can see user slash 42. So that indicates that you are fetching if it is get request, then you are fetching the data of user ID 42. Second is orders 99. It indicates that if it is a GET request, get request, then in that case, you are fetching the data of order having ID 99, correct? For each and every individual, again and again I am saying, for each and every individual task, you have to have raise one individual request for REST APIs. Third is HTTP words. Maybe if few of you are not familiar, then you must be thinking of GET requests means what other requests are there. So here you can see 7 I have mentioned. So GET request is for fetching the data, for reading the data. If that data has been loaded or server is having valid response for that, then you will get status code as what? 200, okay. And if that data is not available on the server, then 404 not found. If you want to store some data, for example, by registration, you give data to the server, right? You are not fetching from the server. You are entering the details and you want it to log it to the server. In that case, for creation, we use post request. Okay. And if you are able to, if you are successfully able to register, then what you will get as a status code? 201 created. Okay. And example, if you are typing some wrong input in input fields, then what you will get? By request 400. Also, as we are in cybersecurity, we should know what status codes status code will be displayed. Okay, and what status code we get in which case, that also we should know and we should remember. Third is put request. See, put and patch sounds similar, right? But there is a small difference. Put request is for modifying data if it does not exist. Example, if there are a few items, let's say small quantity, 10 items are there on your web application, okay? And if you are adding one more item, example, if that does not exist in the system from that 10, then there will be one more order item will be added to the list. And if with that ID or with that name already, it depends on which unique identifier you are taking. So if that item already exists and you want to change the item name or the stock or the price, like multiple things you want to update, then you will use put request. But if you want to modify something, for example, forgot password, you want to change email, some modification in price, a single field, that time you will use patch request. Again, you can look at the status code, put 200 OK if you are able to add item successfully or modify the item successfully, and 204 if not found, or some other cases. Patch 200 OK if you are done successfully, if you have done successfully, and 204 again if you are not able to proceed. Delete, self-explanatory. Delete means if you want to delete some user, some product or anything. If you want to remove something from the database, then delete. If you are successfully able to delete, then 200 OK. Otherwise, 204 no content. And options, basically options method is very useful when we start attacking or start targeting our application. Like you want to see how many methods are allowed for that request. Like, can you switch your get request input into post? Can you change the request method? Will not go quite deep. Like it, there will be certain benefits if you change get request to post request and stuff. So changing methods is always we try when we start attacking. So by using options method, we can check what all methods are allowed for this request and for this browsing. Next is head. Head is for example, if you want to download some data or the content or the PDF or the movie or the video or something, if that is large, so before starting download and before trying again and again whether that resource is there or not or to download, we send head request, like whether the resource is available or not, and then the downloading will start. Again, if your net is off or some issue has came, then again it will first check by head request whether the resource is available or not, and then it will start downloading or the stuff. Last is cacheable. Cacheable means, for example, whatever, for example, if you have loaded the profile, correct? If you have loaded the profile and after some time, if you try to again reload, then it is not going to hit the server. It will first check in the browser. Okay, so that is caching for time being. For you can see maximum age or ETEC, CDN, these are maintained. If you have used Bobsuit or if you have seen the request response, then you might be having idea. So there will be few attributes by which you can understand what is the maximum age of this request. After that, it should refresh or ask to the server for the updated data. Okay, so this was about REST. Take 1 second and just have a look. Stateless, resource-based, cacheable, and HTTP verbs we use. For individual functionality, we have to use dedicated method. These are the request methods: get, put, post, page, patch, delete, and 200, 204. These are the status code. Now GraphQL. One more thing you can notice, REST API is used by like giant company I have considered, and there are many, most of the like 60% to 80% are using REST API only, and sometimes hybrid also. But for now, you can see PayPal, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. And while taking examples also, we had a discussion about like orders, fetching data, fetching users, registering, right? So you can assume that with Amazon. Now GraphQL. GraphQL was introduced by Meta and in Facebook. GraphQL is also used by Shopify Netflix. Netflix is what? Live streaming, right? So you can relate little bit like when to use GraphQL. Rest we will be discussing here. So GraphQL single endpoint. See, new picture. Okay, REST API for each and every individual functionality we were having different methods. But now for any of the functionality we are going to hit a query. A single query, a single endpoint. No head put post fetch for different, we are not having different things. We have to write a query. GraphQL itself says query language. Okay. Why graph? Because the architecture of GraphQL is graph based. Like tables are related to each other in graph manner. Okay. Single endpoint, you'll be writing query, read, write, and subscribe. Read, for read we say query. You can see in, yeah, operations. You can see in operation, read. Second operation, mutation, means writing the data over database. And subscription, real-time fetching. Okay, that is subscription. So there are only 3 categories while dealing with the data in case of GraphQL. Is that clear till here? This was REST, this is GraphQL. We are talking about GraphQL right now. So single endpoint, we are going to request for any data with the help of query. How query looks like, you can see in second box. So for example, if you want to fetch some detail of user, you are writing type user, ID, and then name and email. Specifically, you can see here the string and not null is also mentioned because this is typed schema. You can define which type of data should be fetched. Name then in string format only. ID should not be null. So in GraphQL, you can define typed schema. Schema means everyone knows database schema. Yes? Okay. Now precise fetching. For example, in REST API, if you guys are new to API or the REST API or the GraphQL API, then just understand this by when you deal with internet or you place some request or you place some order or when you register yourself, when you log into the system, relate with that and try to understand if it is first time for you. Okay. Now, precise fetching. So, in REST, there was no precise fetching? Not actually. If there is a GET request, for example, we said user 42. So, if it is designed, like if you will hit user 42 with GET method, then certain details, for example, if 5 attributes are there, then all 5 attributes will get loaded in response every time in all the cases. If the request is get user slash some ID, then there will be 5 attribute every time if it is designed that way. But in GraphQL, you can decide what all things you want. Okay, for the first time you can write user ID 42. I just want name and email. Other time you can write user ID 42, just name or just contact number or name and contact number. So basically you can decide what all attributes or what all details you want. Okay. So precise fetching in GraphQL that can reduce overload and you can control control what should be there in response. Operations we have already discussed. There are only 3 type of operation in GraphQL. Read, keep it in mind because we'll be repeating this again and again in this 1 hour of session, okay? Read, we also call queries. Write, we say mutations. If I say mutation, that means we are writing data over the database or we are storing something, okay? So that will be mutation. If I'm saying queries, then reading the data, fetching the data, and subscription means we are talking about real time WebSocket push, live streaming basically. Okay. Okay. Next is introspection. Introspection means this is based, you can see the query. You should understand the structure. like how to write, what table name should be there, and where to write what. Here you can see very small query just fetching two attributes of some user, right? So might be this is not complex for you, but later in the slide we will see the complex query also. So introspection is basically understanding the schema, like this table is there, inside this table is there, or the nested query that. So clients can query the schema itself via schema type, what type of database is there, and what is the architectural structure of nesting of the tables or the permissions, you can say. But understand one thing, if everyone, let's say if it is open to all, like anyone on the internet can see the architecture or the hierarchy level of the table or the database, it is known by everyone, then it's very easy to attack, right? So basically debugging or introspections should be disabled for the production mode. For the debugging, yes, because we have to write the code. For the developer have to write the code. So they should know the architecture or the sequence or the schema, right? But not to others over the internet. So it is good for powerful for the developers, but not for the production. So one thing we should keep in mind, the very first thing we should keep in mind is introspection should be disabled before deploying, before deployment. Resolver architecture. So you can see here in the queries only, user with ID 42 fetch name and email. Is it validating whether the user is 42 only? No. Is there written anything? Like in REST API, we have bearer token. I have not mentioned the token, but some hash code and bearer token is there, which validates whether you are user 42 or not. But here in query, with are we verifying like user 40, like the user is 42 only or not? No. So resolver architecture means you also have to validate. So you can see here. So if user data is null, no ID has been passed, then unauthorized or some invalid data. Or if ID argument is null, then invalid user ID. That way you can define like to validate the user, to validate the request. So just instead of writing simple query, you should also validate, because we don't have bearer token kind of thing in GraphQL. So you can also understand one thing, if developers have not designed properly and if you can access the data this way, then how easy it is for you, right? So with advantage, of course, disadvantages also comes. Now architecture, REST request flow. Initially only we have cleared like for each and every individual functionality you have to generate, raise one individual request. So you can see if you want to, mobile app needs user profile, user order and profile picture. Three things, right? You have to make 3 requests here, right? First is for getting user data. See the request properly, get user 42. Okay. Second is user orders. Then you are making another request. And for profile picture, you are making one more request. So basically, sorry. So basically to get this 3 details, you made 3 requests. But in GraphQL, this can be done by only single query. So you can see here user ID 42, name and email, and from orders ID and ID and total, and from profile picture and profile picture. So in single query, you can write multiple things. You can say multiple requests can be made using a single query. No need to send data multiple times. So result for the rest, one screen required for I said, right, when you load a data or you see the when you inspect the element, you see multiple requests are getting loaded for one page or something, right? So one screen required 3 HTTP requests. In our scenario, we said limited things. In that case only, if you see the 3 requests, in other cases, you can assume how many requests will be there. It depends on your page, how heavy or like how many things are there on your page. So this is called multiple round trips. And for GraphQL, you have seen, so single trip request you can say. So one round trip regardless of complexity. Okay, so basic idea we got, right? Like let's see again. These all things are there in REST API. These all things are there in GraphQL API. One query, only single query, multiple round trips, stateless. The first one is stateless, cacheable, but it is cacheable, like no need to fetch the data again and again because it is maintaining caching. Okay, that thing is there in REST API. It is stateless, and GraphQL you can say single endpoint, typed schema that can be controlled here, which cannot be controlled in REST API. Okay, then precise fetching. We cannot do in REST API, right? Precise fetching cannot be done in REST API. If it is designed like you have to, if you are like making GET request for user details, then what I said, if there are 5 attributes, then every time for all the users, 5 attributes will get fetched. But in case of this, you can decide what all things you want to load. So you can secure your system from the overfetching. So let's decide which one and when. So when to use REST? When you have simple CRUD operation, you know, right? Can anyone name them? Yes, create, read, update, delete. Basic operations we do over database. So create, read, update, delete. So if you have simple CRUD operation, then you will use REST API. Like you want to fetch some data in simple applications, you can say, or where you don't have live streaming, you can say, right? And then microservices mesh, public open API, because if APIs are open or public, then you are not bothered of precise fetching or the type schema. Then in that case, it is fine if you are using REST API. Then team familiarity also matters, because if you are not having developer or the your resources understanding GraphQL, then how you can implement it basically. So that is also a reason REST API is more in use, was more in use till now, but now GraphQL is also coming into the picture, like more than before. So team familiarity, faster onboarding. Every developer already know REST patterns, how it works. Anyone said something? Okay. Heavy caching needed and file uploads. If heavy caching needed, then you can go for REST API. Why? Because it is cacheable, right? It keep caching of whatever the data you have browsed. Okay, and file upload and streaming, binary data, multiple uploads and streams are simplest via REST, because via one request you can do. In query, like who are not familiar, they will find it little complex because you have to write query in certain structure. Okay, so when to use GraphQL? When, okay, understand this nicely, because we are gathered here to understand GraphQL API. Okay, mainly. So multiple clients. You can take example of Facebook. Facebook is having website, a messenger, and then mobile application also. So you're having different front ends from the and having same backend, right? If you are loading your profile, then it should be visible on like Facebook website also. You have some interface for your profile. For mobile application also you have some interface, and for messenger you have some different interface with one account only, right? So when you have different front end designs for same backend, then in that case you will go for GraphQL. So mobile, web, TV app need different data shapes from same source. You can also consider Hotstar for this. Real-time requirements. as you remember, if you remember, query, mutation, subscription. Query read, mutation write, subscription real time fetching. So if you have real time requirement, live streaming kind of things, then of course again GraphQL is more suitable. Then complex nested data. You are writing query at first and you might find it complex and confusing, but if you know query, you all are from IT at least, yes. So we learn like languages and then databases, so we don't find 3 or 4 nested query or some structure complex, right? We are familiar with that. So complex nested data, if it is there, as we have seen for the single small requirement, requirement, we made 3 requests in this. This is also not complex, I guess, right? For 3 things, just small query. And if few more things are also there, you have to just write few more attributes in this. So complex nested data, just write one query and here you go. No need to send multiple HTTP requests. So in that case also, what you can do to reduce overhead, you can use GraphQL. Then API gateway federation, stitch multiple services into one, like that is only same thing. Unified type super graph and rapid front end iteration. I just gave example of Facebook or Hotstar, you can say. On mobile application also you can see. On TV also you can see the same Hotstar, but the interfaces are little different everywhere, right? You can take example of Amazon also, and there are many. At least web and mobile, 2 interfaces are there only for each and everyone. But there are few more some in some cases. So if you have a number of front end and rapid changes in that, like continuous changes are coming to the front end. So in that case, we can use GraphQL. You should ask why. So in case of REST API, if you are making some new changes to your front end, then you have to design from which API will be getting the data, or we need to design new API, or how. But in case of GraphQL, it's all about writing a query from the same table. It's not bothered about like which endpoint. It is, see, in REST API, it is endpoints. It's all about endpoints. If you want to get user detail, there will be a user endpoint. If you want to get order details, there will be order endpoint. For each and every task, there will be a separate endpoints. But in case of GraphQL, there is no headache of endpoints. It is simply writing a query, fetching the data from the database. Okay? And developer experience. Like introspection, how? See, in what I said earlier, introspection is good for developer and it should be disabled for the disable in production. So if you can simply see, you will say like how I will understand what is the structure and how to where to nest it and what is the hierarchy, how I will understand. So for developers, by enabling introspection, you can understand what schema name is there, what types are there, so that you can get from a certain query. So developer experience introspection, playground, auto-generated types SDK clients. So I hope little bit idea you have got, like when to use REST API, when to use GraphQL. I'll give 1 second for each slide. Just observe. Okay, let's move ahead. Now it's final time for comparison. Endpoint model. So for REST API, of course, multiple endpoints, multiple tasks, multiple endpoint. For each task, a separate endpoint. For GraphQL, only single GraphQL query. For anything you want to do, you will write a query, simply query. Okay. Query either you will write query for reading the data or for writing, that means mutation, or for streaming, that is subscription. Data fetching, in case of REST API, fixed response shape. Like if there are, for user data, there are 5 attributes, you will get 5 attributes for all, I have said earlier. And for GraphQL, you can decide precise fetching, like what all things you want. So data fetching is in REST, fixed response shape, and in GraphQL, client specified fields. So GraphQL wins in both the situation. In first, simplicity, you have to write one query, you are not bothered of different requests, method, status code, okay? And in second case, data fetching, again GraphQL wins, no overfetching. Third is caching, REST can do, GraphQL cannot. REST do the caching by native CDN, client delivery network, okay? GraphQL, custom strategy required if you want to cache your browsing data, okay? So here REST wins because zero configuration is required. It is done by default. Fourth is versioning. You must have heard about versioning V1, V2, V3, right? So in case of APIs, we have to consider or we have to take care of versioning. But in case of GraphQL, it's all about schema evaluation and deprecations. So here GraphQL. Error handling, HTTP status code, you get 204 or you are getting 400, that means bad request. 200 okay, that means successful, right? So by status code, you will understand like what error or what happened from the server. But in case of GraphQL, there will be always 200 okay or the errors. For different scenarios, you will get some error messages. There are not multiple status codes. Clear? Again, in REST API, you have different status code for each response, for each type of response. In GraphQL, you have either 200 okay or the error messages. Okay? Text error messages like what happened. So REST is standard because in case of GraphQL, there will be like every time there will be different error message. To understand that, and every developer will design it in a different way. They will write in a different error message that they will throw, right? But in case of REST, it is standard. Okay, 201 created. Your ID has been created. 200, okay, my request is successfully done. Or 400 bed request, or it is designed in a standard format. So REST wins here because it is having a standard successful or unsuccessful responses by represented by status code. Security surface, well understood because it is quite old. And GraphQL, larger, introspect and batching. Batching we'll understand in later slides. Real time, for real time streaming, like if you have observed here, in this also we have mentioned file upload and streaming. Streaming is possible in REST using REST API, but we need to poll every time. We need to check updates every second. So real-time polling or SSE is required in case of REST API, and in GraphQL it is inbuilt. So REST GraphQL wins here because in GraphQL streaming is built in via subscription. Auth enforcement, middleware or gateway we need, and per resolver, easy to miss. Means in case of sending REST API request, we use token, bearer token. So there only we are validating whether the user is authorized or not. But in case of a GraphQL, you have to mention, you have to write a code for validating. If you are missing that, or if it is not designed in that way, then of course we are going to miss on this. Learning curve, low and universal, and this is moderate coming. Okay, AI agent friendly. Now understand this. AI agent friendly. So GraphQL is more AI agent friendly. Can anyone think of it like how? Because you have certain structure, schema, some query language, some format. Like for particular task, you are going to write some schema. If your AI agent can understand the schema or the hierarchy or the structure, then definitely AI can work on it. But in case of REST API, sending multiple requests and understanding that flow is very difficult for AI agent. So AI agent friendly is GraphQL. LLM tooling can be done in GraphQL. Take 1 second and just go through when GraphQL wins and when REST API wins.
And one small question.
Yeah.
What's like schema evaluation and the
Like if there is a new table or new like there are multiple tables, and if there is new relation has been established, so in that case that will be changed. Nesting will change.
deprecation?
Deprecation means some tables has been removed, or some authorization access level has been decreased or something that way. Like now this like for example in scenario 1 the table was accessible to all, but now we are deprecating, like it should not be in use or it should not be accessed by this particular access rules. So deprecation. Okay. Now again in a structure way, in a flow chart way, if multiple clients with different data shapes, that means different front ends, then you will go for GraphQL. If no, then let's take another thing in consideration. If real time or subscription data required, GraphQL. If no, let's see another factor, heavy caching, public API access, REST. Public API, open API, for that we have REST. Okay. If no, then next question. Simple CRUD operation, you can go for REST, you can go for GraphQL, no worries. Okay. Clear? Multiple front ends, GraphQL. Real-time subscription, better is GraphQL. Heavy caching and public API access, REST API. And then simple CRUD operation is there, then anything is fine. Now, GraphQL pentest kill chain, bug bounty wale ready ho jao. So what steps to be followed? And okay, out of this, which one you think is more important, most important out of this 7? Like it is general for web, for mobile, for anything, you have to follow certain steps. So what do you think? Which one is more important? Enumeration. Okay, anyone? You can answer anything else also. Recon, right? Recon is always important, crucial for any of the attack. Web application, mobile application, thick client, or the APIs or anything. You should know your attack surface well. So reckoning is, you have to, if you have reckoned properly, then you will save your time in later stage. Otherwise, you have to go back and you have to see what all things were there, right? So reckoning is very important. You should give more and more time for reckoning and then go ahead. Okay. So GraphQL pentest skill chain, first recon, fingerprint. This is about GraphQL specifically, okay? Reckoning will be there in everyone. Every type of attack like web, mobile, thick client, anything, source code, for anything, not for source code. So recon will be there, enumeration can be there, but this is specific for GraphQL, okay? Recon, fingerprinting, enumerate, authorization testing. Specifically, this is for GraphQL, I'm mentioning again. It matters, okay? And then injections, exploit, and report. Report will be there in everyone, every type of attack or you are doing. Okay. So you can read this line. This is for you all who are new. Okay. Legal and ethical reminder before targeting any site, any live, or you should have permission to attack over that. Okay. So recon every source, every step, you have to recon entire, you must have you have not gone, you might have not gone through all the steps of attacking, but recon must, everyone must have done, right? So Google Dorking, Shodan, robot, it is usual, the one which is for others. Robots.txt, sitemap.xml, so these all things you should check. JavaScript files you should check. JS source mapping, network tabs. So these all things you should understand about your target system. Next is fingerprinting. This is specific for GraphQL. Okay, fingerprinting means, see, in GraphQL, how we are fetching or writing over the database? Via query. One and only thing is there, query. So you should first know what is the schema or what is the architecture of writing query, what is the nesting, right? So that can be get to know by introspection, right? Using introspection, you can understand what is the schema for the system. So step 1, universal probe. You can fire a query, just calculate type name. So you will get the type of database. And you can also use tool. This graph wolf is a tool. So by that also you can try to get blueprint of your target system. Then you should know your engine, which engine has been used by backend system. What is mean by engine here? Because see, all developers are not familiar with the same language or the GraphQL. Sometimes developers are more familiar with Node.js, few are with .NET, few are with Java, right? So in that case, in those cases, they'll be using different GraphQL engine. So Apollo server in case of Node.js, GraphQL Java itself says Java, and Ruby one, yeah, and Hot Chocolate is for .NET. So language, according to language familiarity, GraphQL engine will be used by developers or the organization.
So how do we check the step 1?
You will put this query on endpoint, like from where you are fetching the data. Generally, in case of REST API, what do you do? For SQL injection or for anything, you hit that query on endpoint, right? Same. You will write this query over there. If your system is using GraphQL, then you will get the result or you will get the error. If it is giving the type, that means it is using GraphQL.
So you said that for GraphQL, we just have a single endpoint / GraphQL.
Single endpoint means we just write single format. The writing format is query only. Endpoints, for any endpoints, you'll be writing query only. It is that way.
With the endpoint would be about directly at simple sheet.
For any endpoint, the format will be same, writing query. It is that way.
The points. Like you said, in REST APIs, you have /user /42 /order /for.
Like for getting any kind of data, you'll be writing like API, like different structure is there. For getting user data, you'll be writing user /42 get request you'll be sending. For other thing, you will be sending different request. But here in GraphQL, for different thing, you'll be writing, format will be same, a query. Like there will be no like for this we are writing get, for this we are writing post. But in case of GraphQL, there will be different task or functionality, but you'll be writing query only.
But on which endpoint? /code is /GraphQL. The endpoint is /GraphQL. And if I try to go through multiple responses or the request, I will definitely see something like /GraphQL mentioned there. So I automatically get to know that it is using GraphQL. So why do I have to do the step 1?
No. You will like see from which perspective you are saying.
For example, I'm doing a pen testing.
So here's just let's you have to first find out whether your system is using GraphQL or it is not like you will understand by some FOI like this is using GraphQL. The side looks say the enquiries or the different data you have to fetch from the different places and say the writing query for it could be say like a query like delete requests for the say a query. And if your system is using REST API, then it requires for one to be different for each scenario. Enumeration. So, first of all, yes.
Up in GraphQL, the query authorization get to query.
Yes, if there are like you send your request or by query only, right? So that is the only way in query, in your like code only, query code only, you will be validating by using E for something validation, you will apply, right? Query is the only way. Query is the only way to reach out to the any of the functionality. That is the point. Okay. It is not like for doing anything, there is only single endpoint you are writing there. It is not that. It is about the structure is same for each and every task. The structure is same, endpoints will be there, but structure will be same. Okay. So, few endpoints are common like for robot.txt and stuff. So, in GraphQL, these are the few common enumeration paths which you have to look for in first go. Second is introspection bypass. So, as he said, like it will be known in advance like your system or the any system is using GraphQL. So, it is not there. You have to find out the system front end will look same only for all kind of API or any database you are using. Front end, by looking at the front end or interface, you cannot say which API or which back end system is implemented. Okay. So, introspection bypass, first you will check for type name, like which database, whether your system is using GraphQL. So you can see query, type name, and then query type schema. We are trying to fetch the details, like whether it is using graph database, are we able to understand the schema, whether if you will get to know these things only when your introspection is not disabled in production. Okay. And if it is disabled, you won't be able to do it by simple firing this kind of queries. Okay. Now you can see for read, extract schema. So query type name and then mutation type name for writing, and identifying queries. Query user, you are trying, you don't know, you are an attacker, okay? You are trying with these queries. If you are getting results successfully, then cool. If not, then you have to try different things. These are the very basic and primary things you will try to get to know your system, or whether, like for example, if you get successful results here, then you will understand, okay, user table is there, ID attribute is there, name attribute is there, okay? And same for identify mutation. If you are able to write the email, here create user, name this and this. If you are able to do this, that means this fails, these things are there, this exists in the system. Test authorization, what you are doing here, for example, if you have logged in with ID 1 and you are getting this details, okay, name and email example. So for the same request, what you are doing, changing the ID with 2, and you will check whether you are able to get the details. If yes, then authorization bypass. Also check the query depth, batching, and find sensitive fields. Okay, query depth means, we'll be understanding anyway. A query depth means nested structure, we already said, like in here, nesting basically. Yeah, 3 details we were fetching, yeah, here. So query, we are getting user details, order details, profile picture. We are getting detail from 3 different tables, right? And there can be many more. But how many? How many are allowed? Thousands? Actually, thousands if you are not applying the limits. So it is called as query depth. If it is there, if you can iterate any number of tables, then in that case, what is possible? Attack is possible, right? You can try with anything. No limit is there. So that's why we are saying try for the query depth. How many iteration you can do, how deep you can go, how many hierarchy level you can cross, right? So query depth, then check batching, we'll see, rate limiting and stuff basically. So recon, fingerprinting, enumeration, and then odd test, injection, exploit report, that we will see via vulnerability list, okay? So vulnerability classes, introspection abuse. Till here, is it clear to everyone? REST, GraphQL preferable where live stream needed, and you want to fire, like if developers know the language, then GraphQL is more suitable. Then if multiple front ends, different front ends are there for the same system, for the same services, then you can use GraphQL. Real-time requirements are there, and complex nested data. Then because for fetching the like nested data, you are just writing one query and not sending the multiple requests. So you can reduce overhead. So basically, okay, we are understanding when GraphQL is useful. Now, we also should understand if this many flexibilities are there, then definitely attack surface will become larger, okay, or it will be different than the REST API. So very first thing you will do after first thing you will do, you will check whether that system is using GraphQL. So introspection abuse, and that you will get to know if introspection is not disabled. Okay, so you will try to get that, like what is the schema, what is the architecture is has been used by this system, which engine is used. Engine, you know, right? This many engines were there, or there are few or more. So basically, why it is important to know the which GraphQL engine is used by which system type of query, and you can see this part for each. See, if you have a web application, in case of web application attack also, it depends on which language you are using, or on that basis different CVEs are already there, right? Same goes here for Apollo. There are different CVs are already released. If Apollo, it is using Apollo, then you will try for those dedicated attacks, right? Instead of wasting time on trying everything. You can see the CV names are here, and for each and every, like different attacks are already had been found. Introspection abuse, very first step done. Okay, so what all things you should try. This is all about attacking now. No more description what it is and how it is. It is about where to attack. So what you will try for? You will try to delete user, make admin, like making yourself admin or user admin, ban user, reset password, resetting password of someone else. You will try with these things. What we are doing? Vulnerability checks, or we are attacking right now. Okay? So think in that direction, what all things you can do with if your system has GraphQL architecture. So these things you will try on, and the below one you can read, like just by introspection abuse, how much bounty someone got. Second is IDOR, BOLA, broken object level authorization, changing the ID. This we have already discussed, like you have logged in with ID someone, and in same request you are just modifying the ID number, and if you are able to get in, then that is IDOR. Insecure direct object, I forgot. What it is, anyone can name? IDOR? Reference, yeah, reference. Okay. Horizontal privilege escalation. Horizontal means you are normal user and you are getting ID, you are able to access some other normal user. Okay. And vertical privilege escalation, you are normal user and you are able to access the higher level user, user with higher access. Example admin, or maybe it can be some in between. So horizontal privilege escalation, mutation IDOR. Mutation IDOR means you are able to change someone else's email ID. You are like for example, update email ID. You are on that endpoint, and you are just by changing the ID. For example, in your profile, you have clicked on update email, okay, and you were having your ID, let's say 1, but you have changed with 99 and added some ID, and you are successfully able to pass this request. That means you have changed the email ID of someone else. So mutation IDOR. You are not just fetching the data, you are writing on someone's profile. Nested IDOR via relationships. So private, you are again you are fetching private nodes or some sensitive attributes of someone else. Replay base 64 IDOR, what it is? Yeah.
Uh, I have one question. With the HTTP verb, you see that whether the request is just fetching or asking for details or it's posting anything like updating
Yes.
in graph. Where how will you identify that?
See, in case of fetching, you are just writing this. Here you have to write the key and value both, right? Yes.
Okay. So what if it's RC for a detail, but it's also mentioning what exactly can be key? So if we give the value over there as well, huh?
See what details you want. For that we have this only. For example, wait, it is not visible to me. So user ID, see here you are also giving the details, like ID is 2, right? In bracket you are giving the detail. For this user I want this details. So it depends like where you are writing. So there you are writing in that table, you are writing attributes, like for this mapping you want these things. And here also you can say it is not necessary, like update profile, and there can be some unique identifier. For this you want to update this.
Say that if I'm not, posting anything, I'm not, if we take an example of HTTP verb. So post is something that you are actually putting inside server, right? So if we are not doing that, then basically we are not going to pass any value. It crash,
Yes.
right? Complete for any request. For any request that is using GraphQL as a vector.
Yes.
Oh,
If you are not updating, if you don't want to update anything, so basically why you will write the query?
just sketching the rate. Like what he beats is, I just want to read the data and not update anything.
So you will write that query. Yeah, you will not assign any value. Okay. If you don't want to write anything, then the query will look like this. If you want to update something, query will look like this. Okay. And
Like here you have mentioned ID colon 2. What if I want to see all the users from 2 to 5? So can I write a raise?
yes. Everything is possible. We have just considered simple queries because it is first session and might be few will be not familiar with that. Okay. So I done broken level authorization by if you have allowed, if you can fetch all the fields, which should not be, then in that case broken field level authorization can be done. If you observe, see internal score can only be seen by admin, right? And that also you are able to fetch. So in that case it can be said that broken field level authorization, attribute level basically. Okay, like if you are only allowed for fetching name and email, but you are also able to fetch internal score, but there should be a condition or validation. Internal score, it is there in user table, but it can be only fetched by admin. So in that case validation should be there. If validations are not there, you are able to fetch, then it is broken field level authorization. Batching attacks, rate limiting bypass and brute force. Alias batching, see, we had a discussion of writing a query, done for anything, for reading, for writing, for live streaming, query, right? But we have not discussed about the limitations. How many nesting, how many lines of code, right? So basically you can do batching. Batching means writing multiple requests in single query. You can see login for user admin with password pass1. Login, user admin password 2. So we are sending multiple requests in single query. So if there is no limit on alias batching, then brute force can be done. Same array batching can also be done. We are doing the same thing with different approaches. Array batching, then real impact, like what we can do out of it. So MFA bypass, 10,000 OTP we are trying. Account takeover, password spray. Password spray everyone knows, right? What is password spray? Someone?
Only when hotspot will be used to different account usually.
Is it? What is the difference between brute force and password spray?
So we should just take one password and spray the all username. Let's take I have a 300 username, so I will spray all the means separate passwording approximate 300 users. And yeah. On PVC.
Denial of service. Brute force versus password spray. Note it down, okay? Denial of service, DOS attack. As we have not discussed about the limitation, so here you can write any, like you are writing type name 1000 number of times. And what will happen? It will fetch the what is type name, and DOS attack can happen because there is no limit. Similarly, by using this include, @include directives basically, and the same for that nesting, unlimited nesting you are doing, and by that DOS attack, because there is no limit and your server will be overloaded by the request. Injections, SQL, NoSQL, SSTI via GraphQL arguments. We are not going deep here. File upload same like in web attacks, like sending XML file instead of image file if it is not validating, right? Information disclosure, again attribute level things will come, like see, in error it is showing the whole path which should not be done. So information disclosure via verbose error message. You have sent some wrong query and you are getting the whole detail. This should not happen. And if this is happening, good for us, for attackers, right? Subscription abuse. WebSocket authentication bypass, I'll explain. Like you are, if you are able to use someone else's account, then in that case you will able to see what their live streaming feed, okay? Then mass assignment via GraphQL mutation, if there is no limit on attributes, then in that case you can write n number of attributes in particular table. I'll go ahead. Few CVs, many CVs are there, I have listed two for DOS, and DOS was happened, you can see just this, just by engine detected. You got the engine, which engine it is using, and whatever like particular attack, particular CV you have applied, and engine detect, check this CV, wait, not this, somewhere here. Due to what? First one, no limit on duplicate directives, @include you have seen earlier, right? So there, because no limit on directive was there, they were able to do this DOS attack. Second one is executable normalized fields. Query depth, there was no limit on query depth, nesting of the query, and due to that DOS attack happened. Now defense, what you should take care of to protect your system: disable introspection, operation allow listing. See, allow listing is more important than block listing. Block listing can be bypassed, but allow listing can be maintained like over block listing. Query depth, you have to limit, you should limit. This is defense mechanism, okay? Query depth should be defined. Complexity and alias limit. Alias was like we were trying multiple passwords, that was aliasing. A1, first query we wrote, A2, we are writing the same username, different password, brute forcing we have done. Yeah, the first one is aliasing, okay? So whatever attack surfaces were there, we have to take care of them, or we have to, okay. Query depth you should define, complexity, alias limits, and authentication and authorization. Don't just allow user like to fetch the data by writing just simple query, validation should be there, okay. Resolver architecture we have seen earlier. Input validation, rate limiting and SSRF prevention, monitoring, logging and anomaly detection. Now you can just take OS top 10 for each and like every platform, like web, mobile, API, GraphQL also we have OS top 10, like which vulnerabilities were more usual. So you can see introspection, abuse and stuff. You can take picture of this and understand which one is more critical, high, medium or lowest, of course will not be recorded in OS top 10. Yes. You can take picture of this is for your reference. Security toolkit. InQL is a BUP extension which you can use for introspection abuse at first stage. Then few learning resources and debug write-ups which you should read. Reading blogs is always useful. Few word lists you should target when you are targeting GraphQL.